Chapter 1. The Voyage Begins. The Mediterranean sun hung low, casting a golden shimmer across the waves as the SS Aurora prepared to depart from the bustling port of Marseille. The ship, a marvel of modern engineering, gleamed with polished brass and teak, its decks alive with the chatter of passengers eager for a voyage of luxury and escape. Among them, stepping lightly up the gangway with his patent leather shoes and meticulously trimmed moustache, was Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective. Poirot adjusted his straw hat, shielding his eyes from the glare, and surveyed the scene with the keen observation of a man accustomed to seeing beyond the surface. Mon Dieu, he thought, how the human heart reveals itself in the smallest gestures. He had accepted this cruise at the insistence of his friend Captain Hastings, who had promised a restful holiday. But Poirot, whose little grey cells never truly rested, suspected that fate had other plans. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome aboard," boomed the ship's purser, a jovial man with a crisp white uniform. "Your suite is ready, and the captain requests your presence at the gala dinner tonight." "Merci beaucoup," Poirot replied, his voice precise and accented. "I look forward to the pleasures of the Aurora. Tell me, who are my fellow voyagers?" The purser hesitated, then leaned closer. "A most distinguished group, monsieur. We have Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, the heiress, quite the talk of London. Then there's Mr. Victor Crane, the entrepreneur, and, well, some say he's not all he seems. Oh, and Mrs. Clara Duval, a widow with a mysterious air. Quite a mix, wouldn't you say?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "A mix, oui? And where there is a mix, there is often discord." He made his way to the promenade deck, where passengers mingled, their voices rising above the cry of gulls. A young woman in a silk dress laughed too loudly, her champagne glass tilting precariously. A man with a politician's practiced smile nodded at a group of admirers, though his eyes darted nervously. And in the shadow of a lifeboat, a woman in black veil stood alone, her posture rigid, as if guarding a secret. Poirot paused, his cane tapping lightly on the deck. "C'est curieux," he murmured. "The air, it is heavy with anticipation. Not of the journey, no, but of something else." A bell rang, signaling the ship's departure. The SS Aurora shuddered gently as it pulled away from the dock, the horizon stretching endlessly before it. Poirot leaned against the railing, watching the coastline fade. He had no evidence, no crime, yet. But his instincts, honed by years of unraveling the human psyche, whispered that this voyage would be anything but restful. "Monsieur Poirot," a familiar voice broke his reverie. Captain Hastings, red-faced from the heat, approached with a grin. "What do you think of her? Finest ship I've ever seen." "Magnifique, Hastings," Poirot said, though his gaze lingered on the passengers. "But it is not the ship that interests me. It is the souls aboard her." Hastings chuckled. "Always looking for a mystery, eh? Well, come along. Let's get you settled before the gala. You'll meet everyone there." As they walked toward the grand staircase, Poirot's mind was already at work, cataloguing faces, gestures, and the fleeting glances that betrayed more than words ever could. The SS Aurora was a floating stage, and the curtain was about to rise on a drama only he could unravel. "Hey, detective, quick question. Where in the world are you solving mysteries from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you want more twisted tales, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's case, it gets even creepier. Stay sharp." Chapter 2. The Captain's Gala. The grand dining saloon of the SS Aurora sparkled under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their light dancing across polished silver and fine china. The air was thick with the scent of roasted pheasant and the murmur of cultured voices, as passengers in evening dress gathered for the captain's gala. Hercule Poirot, impeccable in his black tie, sat at a table near the centre, his sharp eyes scanning the room like a hawk surveying its domain. Captain Hastings, seated beside him, gestured enthusiastically at the opulent surroundings. "I say, Poirot, isn't this splendid? The Aurora knows how to put on a show." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice soft but precise. "But it is not the chandeliers that interest me. It is the shadows they cast." His gaze settled on the other guests at their table, a carefully curated selection by the ship's steward. To Poirot's left sat Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, a striking woman in her 30s, her emerald gown accentuating the diamond necklace at her throat. Her laughter was bright, but her eyes flickered with unease whenever they met those of her companion, Mr. Victor Crane. Crane, a broad-shouldered man with a disarming smile, exuded confidence, yet Poirot noted the way his fingers drummed restlessly on the tablecloth. Across from them was Mrs. Clara Duval, the widow the purser had mentioned. Her black silk dress and veiled hat gave her an air of mourning, but her sharp, observant eyes suggested a mind far from grief. Beside her sat Sir Reginald Holt, a former politician whose career had ended in whispers of scandal. His forced joviality did little to mask the tension in his posture. The captain, a robust man with a booming voice, rose to toast the voyage. "To the SS Aurora and her distinguished guests," he declared. Glasses clinked, but Poirot's attention was drawn to a fleeting exchange. Lady Evelyn leaned toward Crane, whispering, "You promised it would be settled before we sailed." Crane's smile tightened as he replied, "Patience, my dear. All in good time." "C'est intéressant," Poirot murmured, sipping his wine. He turned to Mrs. Duval, who had been silent thus. "Oh, her far. Madam, you seem to find this gathering as incurious as I do." Mrs. Duval's lips curved slightly, her voice low and measured. "One learns much by watching, Monsieur Poirot. People wear masks, but they slip in moments like these." Before Poirot could probe further, Sir Reginald interrupted, his tone overly hearty. "Monsieur Poirot, I hear you're a detective of some renown. Surely you're here to enjoy the sea air, not to sniff out mysteries." Poirot's moustache twitched. "The sea air, oui, but the human heart, it is never at rest. Tell me, Sir Reginald, heart, it is never at rest. Tell me, Sir Reginald, what brings you to the Aurora?" Holt's smile faltered. "Oh, a bit of travel to clear the mind. Politics, you know, leaves one rather blattered." He laughed, but it rang hollow. As the meal progressed, Poirot's ears caught snippets of conversation from nearby tables. A young artist complaining of a lost commission, a shipping magnate boasting of a recent deal, and a nervous steward hovering near Lady Evelyn's chair. The heiress herself seemed distracted, her fingers brushing the diamond necklace as if to ensure it was still there. "Dangerous thing, that necklace," Mrs. Duval remarked softly, her eyes on Lady Evelyn. "It draws envy like moths to a flame." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing the observation. "Précisément, madame. And envy, it is a motive most illuminating." As dessert was served, a faint clatter drew Poirot's attention to the floor. A small silver cigarette case lay under the table, its engraved initials, V.C., glinting in the light. Crane, noticing Poirot's gaze, hastily retrieved it, his charm faltering for a moment. "Careless of me," he muttered. The evening drew to a close with music and dancing, but Poirot remained seated, his thoughts swirling. The SS Aurora was a stage, and its players were already revealing their parts. A whispered promise, a hidden glance, a lost trinket. These were the threads of a tapestry yet to be woven. And Hercule Poirot, with his little grey cells, was ready to unravel it. Chapter 3. Whispers in the Night. The moon hung low over the Mediterranean, its silver light casting long shadows across the SS Aurora's deck. The revelry of the captain's gala had faded, leaving the ship cloaked in a quiet that felt almost conspiratorial. Hercule Poirot, unable to sleep, strolled the promenade deck, his cane tapping softly against the polished wood. The sea air was cool, but the atmosphere aboard carried a warmth of secrets, and Poirot's instincts were alight. He paused near the railing, his sharp eyes catching movement in the shadows near a cluster of deck chairs. Two figures stood close together, their voices low but urgent. Poirot, ever discreet, stepped behind a lifeboat, his ears attuned to the conversation. "You've gone too far this time, Victor," a woman's voice hissed. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, Poirot recognized, her cultured tone now laced with fury. "If you think I'll let you ruin me, you're mistaken." "Keep your voice down, Evelyn," came the reply, unmistakably Victor Crane's, smooth but strained. "You're in no position to make threats. You know what I have on you." Poirot's moustache twitched. Blackmail, he thought, the oldest of motives, and yet so very effective. He strained to hear more, but the pair moved away, their words swallowed by the hum of the ship's engines. Before he could follow, a piercing scream shattered the night. It came from the direction of the first-class cabins, and Poirot hurried toward the sound, his small frame moving with surprising agility. A small crowd had already gathered outside Lady Evelyn's suite, where the heiress stood, her face pale, clutching her silk dressing-gown. "My necklace!" she cried, her voice trembling. "The Ashbourne diamond! It's gone!" Captain Hastings, bleary-eyed in his pyjamas, pushed through the onlookers. "Good heavens, Poirot! What's all this? A theft?" Poirot's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the scene. Lady Evelyn's cabin door was ajar, the lock undamaged. Inside, a velvet jewellery case lay open on the dressing table, empty. The steward, a nervous young man named Ellis, hovered nearby, wringing his hands. "Monsieur Poirot, please," Lady Evelyn implored, her earlier composure gone. "You must help me. That necklace is worth a fortune, and it's all I have left of my family's legacy." "Calmez-vous, madame," Poirot said soothingly, his gaze sweeping the room. "Hercule Poirot will find your diamond, but first tell me, when did you last see it?" "After the gala," she replied, her voice unsteady. "I placed it in the case before retiring. I locked the door myself." Poirot knelt to examine the floor, his fingers brushing the carpet. A faint smudge of dirt caught his eye, barely noticeable, leading toward the porthole. "Curieux," he murmured. "The porthole, it is secure." Ellis nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Locked tight. No one could have climbed through. It's far too small." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his tone enigmatic. He turned to the crowd, where Mrs. Clara Duval watched silently, her veiled hat replaced by a simple scarf, her expression unreadable. Sir Reginald Holt lingered at the back, his face a mask of concern, though his eyes darted toward Crane, who had just arrived, looking dishevelled. "Terrible business, this," Crane said, his charm strained. "Anything I can do, Lady Evelyn?" Her glare could have cut glass. "You've done quite enough, Victor." Poirot noted the exchange, his mind cataloguing every glance, every word. "Mes amis," he said, addressing the group, "return to your cabins. The night, it is not yet done with its secrets. Tomorrow, Hercule Poirot will begin his inquiries." As the crowd dispersed, Hastings leaned close. "Think it's a simple theft, Poirot, or something more?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the moonlight. Mon cher Hastings, a diamond does not vanish without reason. And where there is a reason, there is a story. We have only begun to read its first page. He returned to his cabin, but sleep eluded him. The argument, the theft, the smudge of dirt, all were pieces of a puzzle. And Hercule Poirot, with his little grey cells, was determined to fit them together before the SS Aurora reached its next port. Chapter 4. The Body in the Cabin. The SS Aurora glided through the Mediterranean under a dawn sky streaked with pink and gold. But the serenity of the morning was shattered by a frantic knock on Hercule Poirot's cabin door. Captain Hastings, his face ashen, burst in without ceremony. "Poirot, come quickly. There's been a terrible thing in Sir Reginald's cabin." Poirot, already dressed in his immaculate suit, raised an eyebrow. "Calmez-vous, mon ami. A terrible thing, you say? Lead the way." The corridor outside Sir Reginald Holt's first-class cabin was crowded with stewards and a few early-rising passengers, their whispers buzzing like flies. The ship's captain, his jovial demeanour replaced by grim authority, stood guard at the door. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice low, "I hoped your skills wouldn't be needed, but—" slow. "I hoped your skills wouldn't be needed, but see for yourself." Poirot entered the cabin, his keen eyes taking in every detail. Sir Reginald Holt lay sprawled across the floor, his evening clothes dishevelled, a thin trickle of blood staining the carpet beneath his head. A heavy brass paperweight, engraved with the ship's crest, lay nearby, its edge smeared with crimson. The porthole was closed, the cabin tidy, save for a single overturned chair. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the body. He examined the wound, a sharp blow to the temple, then scanned the room. A half-empty glass of brandy sat on the desk, its contents giving off a faint peculiar odour. Poirot's nose wrinkled. Intéressant. Not just a blow, perhaps. Hastings hovered anxiously. "Murder, Poirot. Or an accident. An accident does not leave a man with such a precise wound, mon cher," Poirot replied, his fingers tracing the air as if arranging invisible puzzle pieces. "Nor does it leave a glass with, let us say, a scent that is not entirely brandy." The captain cleared his throat. "We found him just after dawn. The steward, Ellis, came to deliver breakfast and saw the door ajar. No one heard anything last night, not after the commotion with Lady Evelyn's necklace." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The necklace, oui, and now a death. The threads they begin to weave together." He turned to the captain. "Who was the last to see Sir Reginald alive?" "After the gala, he was seen heading to his cabin," the captain replied. "Alone, as far as we know. But, well, you heard the rumours about him. That political scandal. Some say he was hiding more than shame." Poirot nodded, his gaze returning to the room. A small scrap of paper protruded from beneath the desk, its edge torn. He retrieved it carefully, revealing a fragment of a handwritten note. "Meet me at midnight. We must settle." The rest was missing, the paper ripped jaggedly. "C'est curieux," Poirot said, slipping the note into his pocket. "A rendezvous, perhaps, and one that ended in tragedy." As the ship's doctor arrived to examine the body, Poirot stepped into the corridor, where Lady Evelyn Ashbourne stood, her face pale but composed. Victor Crane lingered nearby, his usual charm replaced by a tense silence. Mrs. Clara Duval, ever watchful, leaned against the wall, her scarf slipping to reveal a faint scar on her neck. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Evelyn said, her voice steady despite her pallor, "is it true?" "Sir Reginald murdered?" "Hélas, madame, it appears so," Poirot replied. "And you, where were you last night, after the theft of your necklace? In my cabin, trying to sleep, she said quickly. The shock, you understand. It was dreadful. Crane stepped forward, his tone clipped. And I was in the smoking lounge until late. Plenty of witnesses, Poirot. Mrs. Duval's lips curved slightly. How convenient, she murmured, her eyes meeting Poirot's. Everyone seems so accounted for. Poirot's moustache twitched. Oui, madame, but alibis, they are like mirrors, polished, but easily cracked. He turned to the captain. No one leaves this ship until we reach port. And I, Hercule Poirot, will find the truth before then. As the crowd dispersed, Hastings whispered, This is getting serious, Poirot. A theft, now a murder. What's next? Poirot's eyes gleamed with determination. What is next, mon ami, is the unraveling of lies. The SS Aurora carries a killer, and I shall find them, with method, with order, and with my little grey cells. Chapter 5. The Alibis Unravel. The SS Aurora's library, with its mahogany shelves and plush armchairs, served as Hercule Poirot's temporary headquarters. The morning sun streamed through the portholes, illuminating motes of dust that danced like secrets in the air. Poirot sat at a polished table, a notebook open before him, his pen poised as he prepared to interview the key passengers. Captain Hastings stood by the door, his expression a mix of curiosity and unease. Mon ami, Poirot said, his voice calm but commanding. Bring in Lady Evelyn first. Her necklace, it is the spark that lit this fire. We must know more. Hastings nodded, and returned moments later with Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, her emerald eyes wary but defiant. She settled into the chair opposite Poirot, smoothing her silk dress with practised grace. Madame, Poirot began, his tone polite yet probing, you say you were in your cabin after the theft of your necklace, overcome by shock. Yet your door was ajar when the steward found it. Curieux, no? Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened on her handbag. I was distraught, Monsieur Poirot. Perhaps I forgot to lock it properly. Is it a crime to be careless in such a moment? Not a crime, non, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. But tell me, this necklace, the Ashbourne diamond, it is not merely a jewel, is it? It carries significance. Her lips parted, then closed. It's a family heirloom, she said finally, worth more than money, but I swear I know nothing of Sir Reginald's death. Poirot noted the slight tremor in her voice, and dismissed her with a nod. Next came Victor Crane, his charm restored but tinged with wariness. He lounged in the chair, lighting a cigarette with deliberate nonchalance. Monsieur Crane, Poirot said, you claim you were in the smoking lounge until late. Yet no one recalls seeing you after 11. And this, he produced the silver cigarette case with the initials VC. It was found near Sir Reginald's cabin. Careless, no? Crane's smile faltered. I must have dropped it earlier. I was nowhere near his cabin, Poirot. After the barman, he served me whiskey until midnight. Oui, I shall, Poirot said, his tone mild but unyielding. And your discussion with Lady Evelyn on the deck last night. It was heated, was it not? A matter of promises unkept. Crane exhaled a plume of smoke, his eyes narrowing. Private business, Poirot. Nothing to do with murder. Poirot dismissed him and turned to Mrs. Clara Duval, who entered with the quiet grace of a shadow. Her scarf was gone, revealing the faint scar on her neck, which she touched absently as she sat. Madame Duval, Poirot said, you observe much and say little. A quality I admire. Tell me, what did you see last night after the gala? Her eyes met his, steady and unreadable. I saw Sir Reginald arguing with the... I saw Sir Reginald arguing with someone near the lifeboats just before midnight. I couldn't hear the words, but he was angry. The other figure, they wore a dark coat, and their face was hidden. Poirot leaned forward. And this figure, madame, man or woman? I couldn't tell, she said softly. The night was too dark. Poirot jotted a note, his mind racing. And your own movements, madame. Where were you when Sir Reginald met his end? In my cabin, reading, she replied. I prefer my own company to the ship's revelry. As she left, Hastings whispered, She's hiding something, Poirot. That scar, there's a story there. Précisément, Poirot said, tapping his notebook. And the steward, Ellis, bring him in? His nerves, they betray him. Ellis, the young steward, entered, his hands trembling. I didn't see anything, sir, he blurted before Poirot could speak. I swear, I just found the door open, and Sir Reginald dead. Poirot's moustache twitched. And yet, Monsieur Ellis, you were near Lady Evelyn's cabin when her necklace vanished. And now, near another crime. Tell me, what do you know of Sir Reginald? Ellis swallowed hard. He tipped well, sir, but he was always asking questions about the passengers, their habits, said he was curious. Curious, indeed, Poirot murmured. He dismissed Ellis, then turned to Hastings. Each alibi, it is like a house of cards, impressive but fragile. The torn note, the cigarette case, the argument by the lifeboats, they point to a truth we have not yet grasped. Hastings frowned. But who, Poirot, and why? Poirot's eyes gleamed. That, mon ami, is what the little grey cells will uncover. The SS Aurora hides a killer, and their mask is beginning to slip. Chapter 6. Secrets of the Past. The SS Aurora sailed smoothly through the Mediterranean, its decks bathed in the warm glow of midday sun, but an air of unease lingered among the passengers. In the ship's library, Hercule Poirot sat with a stack of passenger records provided by the captain, his keen eyes scanning for connections that might illuminate the murder of Sir Reginald Holt. Captain Hastings paced nearby, his brow furrowed. Poirot, this is a tangle, Hastings said, gesturing at the papers. Theft, murder, arguments in the night. How does it all fit? Poirot's moustache twitched as he closed a file. Mon ami, the past, it is like a map. It shows us where the paths of our suspects converge. And today, I have found intersections. He had spent the morning cross-referencing names, dates, and whispers gleaned from the ship's gossip-prone crew. Now, he summoned the key suspects for further questioning, determined to unearth the secrets that bound them to the victim. First to arrive was Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, her composure strained but intact. She sat stiffly, her hands clasped tightly. Madame, Poirot began, his tone gentle but piercing, your necklace, the Ashbourne diamond, it was not merely an heirloom, was it? I have learned it was tied to a scandal in London 5 years ago. A disputed inheritance, no? Lady Evelyn's eyes widened, then narrowed. You've been digging, Monsieur Poirot. Yes, my brother contested the will when our father died. He claimed the diamond was rightfully his, but the courts ruled in my favour. And Sir Reginald Holt, Poirot pressed. He was involved in that case, was he not? A politician with influence, perhaps persuaded? Her lips tightened. He was a family friend. He advised us, that's all. Poirot nodded, dismissing her, and turned to Victor Crane, who entered with his usual swagger, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Monsieur Crane, Poirot said, holding up a newspaper clipping from the ship's archives. You were in London during Lady Evelyn's inheritance dispute. A financial consultant, but some called you a swindler. Crane's jaw tightened. Old rumours, Poirot. I made investments for clients, including the Ashbournes. Some lost money. Business, not crime." "And Sir Reginald?" Poirot asked, his voice sharp. "Did he lose money? Or did he know something about your methods?" Crane leaned back, forcing a smile. "He was a client, nothing more. Ask anyone." Next came Mrs. Clara Duval, her calm demeanour unshaken. Poirot studied her closely, noting the scar on her neck, now partially hidden by a high collar. "Madam," he said, "you told me you saw Sir Reginald arguing near the lifeboats. But there is more, no? I have learned that you two were in London 5 years ago, under a different name, Clara Moreau, a journalist who exposed a political scandal involving Sir Reginald." Mrs. Duval's expression remained steady, but her fingers brushed the scar. "You are thorough, Monsieur Poirot. Yes, I wrote that story. It cost me dearly. Threats, an accident. I left that life behind. And yet," Poirot said, "you are here, on the same ship as the man whose career you ruined. A coincidence?" "Life is full of coincidences," she replied coolly. "I sought peace, not revenge." As she left, Poirot turned to Hastings. "Mon cher, the past binds them all. Lady Evelyn's inheritance, Crane's schemes, Mrs. Duval's exposé, and Sir Reginald, he was the thread that tied them together." Hastings frowned. "But why murder him now? And what about the necklace?" Poirot tapped the torn note from Sir Reginald's cabin. Its words, "Meet me at midnight. We must settle," etched in his mind. The necklace, it is a symbol, perhaps, of what was lost. And this note, it suggests Sir Reginald knew something dangerous. We must find the other half. He rose, his eyes gleaming with purpose. "Come, Hastings. The steward Ellis knows more than he admits. And there is another passenger, a young artist, Monsieur Lefebvre, who has been too quiet. Their secrets they will speak to Hercule Poirot." As they left the library, the ship's bell rang, signalling lunch. But for Poirot, the true feast was the puzzle before him, its pieces slowly falling into place. Chapter 7. The Second Crime. The SS Aurora's dining saloon, usually a haven of clinking glasses and lively chatter, was subdued at luncheon. The shadow of Sir Reginald Holt's murder hanging over the passengers like a storm cloud. Hercule Poirot sat at a corner table, his eyes darting between the faces of his fellow diners, each a potential piece in the puzzle he was assembling. Captain Hastings, seated beside him, poked at his meal with little enthusiasm. "Poirot enthusiasm. Poirot," Hastings whispered, "the mood's grim. Everyone's on edge, and you've got them all looking over their shoulders." "Précisément, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice low. "Fear, it loosens the tongue, and today I expect revelations." Before he could elaborate, a commotion erupted near the centre of the saloon. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, seated with Victor Crane and a young artist named Philippe Lefebvre, gasped and clutched her throat, her wine-glass tumbling to the floor, while she dark face flushed red, and she swayed in her chair, choking out, My drink!" The room erupted into chaos. The ship's doctor, Dr. Marsden, rushed to her side, barking orders for water and a stretcher. Poirot was at the scene in an instant, his sharp eyes fixed on the spilled glass, its contents staining the white tablecloth with a faint, unnatural sheen. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, bending to sniff the glass. A bitter, acrid scent confirmed his suspicion. Poison, sans doute, but not fatal, not yet. As Lady Evelyn was carried to the ship's infirmary, Poirot seized the glass, wrapping it carefully in a napkin. He turned to the steward, Ellis, who stood frozen nearby, his face pale. "Monsieur Ellis, who served this wine?" I did, sir," Ellis stammered, but it came straight from the bottle, same as everyone else's. Vraiment? Poirot's gaze was piercing. We shall see. In the infirmary, Dr. Marston reported that Lady Evelyn had ingested a non-lethal dose of a sedative, likely chloral hydrate, enough to incapacitate, but not to kill. She's stable, he said, but shaken. Another sip, and it might have been worse. Poirot's mind raced. A warning, perhaps, he said to Hastings, or a distraction. The killer grows bold, mon ami. Returning to the dining saloon, Poirot questioned Philippe Lefebvre, the young artist, whose nervous demeanour had caught his attention earlier. Lefebvre, with his dishevelled hair and ink-stained fingers, fidgeted under Poirot's scrutiny. Monsieur Lefebvre, Poirot began, you were seated beside Lady Evelyn. Did you see anything unusual? Lefebvre's eyes darted to the side. No, Monsieur Poirot. I was sketching in my notebook. I didn't notice the wine. Poirot produced the torn note from Sir Reginald's cabin. Its words, "Meet me at midnight. We must settle," still vivid in his mind. And this, he said, watching Lefebvre closely, does it mean anything to you? The artist paled. I don't know. I never spoke to Sir Reginald. Vraiment? Poirot said softly. Yet your name appears in the London Art Gallery's records, connected to a commission Sir Reginald funded 5 years ago, before his scandal. A commission that was cancelled? Lefebvre's hands trembled. That was ages ago. I was young, desperate for work. It meant nothing. Poirot dismissed him, then turned to Mrs. Clara Duval, who had been watching from a nearby table. Madam, he said, you saw the poisoner, perhaps. Your eyes, they miss little. Mrs. Duval's lips curved faintly. I saw Ellis pour the wine, but his hands shook, and Mr. Crane, he was quick to leave the table when Lady Evelyn collapsed. Poirot nodded, filing away her observation. He approached Victor Crane, who was lingering near the saloon's entrance, his usual charm frayed. Monsieur Crane, you seem unsettled. Did you not share a bottle with Lady Evelyn? Crane's jaw tightened. I did, but I drank nothing. I don't care for wine at lunch. Curieux, Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. A man of your tastes, avoiding wine, or perhaps avoiding something else? As Crane stormed off, Hastings leaned close. Poirot, this is madness. First a murder, now poison. Are we dealing with a lunatic? Non, mon ami, Poirot said, his voice firm. We deal with a mind that plans, that calculates. The poison, it was meant to warn or to mislead, but Hercule Poirot will not be misled. He gazed out at the sea, the horizon endless and unyielding. The SS Aurora was a floating web of lies, and the second crime had only tightened its strands. Chapter 8. The Locked Room Riddle. The SS Aurora sailed under a sky heavy with clouds, mirroring the growing tension among its passengers. In the wake of Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's poisoning, the ship felt like a gilded cage, its elegance overshadowed by suspicion. Hercule Poirot, undeterred, pursued his investigation with relentless precision, his little grey cells humming as he followed a new lead to the cabin of the young artist, Philippe Lefebvre. Captain Hastings trailed behind, his voice hushed with excitement. Poirot, what's this about? You've been tight-lipped since breakfast. Found something, have you? Oui, mon ami, Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. A thread, delicate but strong, leads us to Monsieur Lefebvre's cabin. The steward, Ellis, mentioned a locked drawer that Lefebvre was unusually protective of. They reached the artist's cabin, a modest space cluttered with sketchbooks and charcoal pencils. Lefebvre, summoned by a steward, stood nervously at the door, his ink-stained fingers twitching. Monsieur Poirot, this is absurd. My cabin is private. I've done nothing wrong. Poirot's moustache twitched. Monsieur Lefebvre, innocence is proven by transparency. Permit me to examine this drawer, or I shall ask the captain to do so with less courtesy. Reluctantly, Lefebvre produced a small key and unlocked a desk drawer, revealing a bundle of papers and a velvet pouch. Poirot's gloved hands carefully extracted the pouch, which contained a single glittering object. Not the Ashbourne diamond, but a sapphire brooch, its intricate design strikingly familiar. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot murmured, turning the brooch in the light. "This belonged to Sir Reginald Holt, did it not? A family piece mentioned in the London papers during his scandal. How comes it to be in your possession?" Lefebvre's face drained of colour. I found it in the smoking lounge after the gala. I meant to return it, but with the murder." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet you knocked it away. Curieux. And these papers?" He sifted through the documents, pausing at a letter written in a hurried scrawl. It was the missing half of the torn note from Sir Reginald's cabin, completing the message, "Meet me at midnight. We must settle the debt you owe me." "Sacre bleu," Poirot said softly. "A debt, Monsieur Lefebvre. What did Sir Reginald demand of you?" Lefebvre sank into a chair. "What did Sir Reginald demand of you?" Lefebvre sank into a chair, his voice barely a whisper. He funded my first exhibition years ago, but when his scandal broke, he lost everything. He claimed I owed him for his ruin, said I'd profited from his generosity. He wanted money I don't have." Poirot nodded, slipping the note and brooch into his pocket. "You will remain here, monsieur, under the captain's watch. The truth, it is close now." As they left the cabin, Hastings frowned. "But Poirot, the cabin was locked. How could anyone have planted that brooch? And the murder, Sir Reginald was killed in his own cabin, not here." "Précisément," Poirot said, his eyes alight. "The locked room. It is not just Lefebvre's drawer, but Sir Reginald's cabin itself. The porthole, the smudge of dirt, the brandy with its strange odour, these are not accidents. Someone entered and left without breaking the lock. But how?" He paused, his mind racing. "We must revisit Sir Reginald's cabin. There is something we have missed, a detail that only the little grey cells can uncover." In Sir Reginald's cabin, Poirot examined the porthole once more. It was small, too small for a person, but a faint scratch on the frame caught his eye. Kneeling, he traced the mark, then inspected the carpet beneath, where the smudge of dirt had been. "Aha!" he said, producing a magnifying glass. "This dirt, it is not from the deck. It is clay, no? From the mainland, perhaps, or from a passenger's shoe." Hastings blinked. "Clay? But we're at sea, Poirot. Where would it come from?" Poirot rose, his expression triumphant. "That, mon ami, is the riddle, and when we solve it, we will find our killer. Come, we must speak to Mrs. Duval again. Her eyes, they see what others miss." As they stepped into the corridor, the ship's horn sounded, signaling their approach to a new port. But for Poirot, the only destination was the truth, hidden within the locked rooms and tangled lies of the SS Aurora. Chapter 9. Shadows of Motive. The SS Aurora glided through the Mediterranean, its decks quiet as dusk settled, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the secrets lurking among its passengers. Hercule Poirot, seated in the ship's library, reviewed his notes, the pieces of the puzzle. Sir Reginald's murder, the stolen diamond, the poisoned wine, the locked room, swirling in his mind like a complex tapestry. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, sat opposite, his brow creased with worry. "Poirot," Hastings said, "we've got a murder, a theft, a poisoning, and now that brooch in Lefebvre's cabin. It's a devil of a mess. Where do we go from here?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. Mon ami, we go to the heart. The motives, greed, revenge, love. These are the flames that drive a killer. And today we shall see which burns brightest. He summoned Mrs. Clara Duval first, her calm demeanour a stark contrast to the tension aboard. She entered, her scarf loosely draped, the scar on her neck faintly visible. Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but probing. Madame Duval, you were Clara Moreau, the journalist who exposed Sir Reginald's corruption. His fall ruined many lives, no? Did it ruin yours? Mrs. Duval's eyes flickered, but her voice remained steady. It cost me my career, Monsieur Poirot. After the story broke, I was attacked, hence the scar. I changed my name, sought peace, but I did not kill him. Revenge is a cold dish, and I've no taste for it. Perhaps, Poirot said, studying her, but you saw him arguing near the lifeboats, and you noticed Mr. Crane's haste to leave the table during Lady Evelyn's poisoning. You know more, madame, than you share. She smiled faintly. I observe, Monsieur Poirot, as you do, but I leave the unravelling to you. Next came Victor Crane, his charm frayed by the mounting pressure. Poirot held up the sapphire brooch from Lefebvre's cabin. Monsieur Crane, this belonged to Sir Reginald. You knew him in London during his scandal. Did you also know of his debts, or perhaps his secrets? Crane's jaw tightened. I told you, Poirot, I was his financial consultant. He made bad investments, lost everything. If he had debts, they weren't to me. And yet, Poirot said, producing the completed note, meet me at midnight. We must settle the debt you owe me. This suggests otherwise. A debt, monsieur, financial or otherwise. Crane's eyes darted to the note, then away. I don't know what he meant. I met him briefly after the gala, but it was about business, nothing more. Poirot dismissed him and turned to Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, who entered with a defiant tilt of her chin, a recovery from the poisoning leaving her pale but resolute. Madame, Poirot said, your diamond, it was the heart of a scandal 5 years ago. Sir Reginald advised your family, but there is more. Whispers of a romantic entanglement, perhaps. Lady Evelyn's cheeks flushed. How dare you? Sir Reginald was a friend, nothing more. My diamond was stolen, and now someone tried to poison me. I'm the victim here. Vraiment? Poirot said, his tone mild but piercing. Yet you argued with Mr. Crane on the deck about a promise unkept. Was it love, madame, or something more material? Her lips trembled, but she said nothing, rising to leave. Poirot's gaze followed her, then shifted to the young steward Ellis, who had been summoned last. The boy's hand shook as he stood before Poirot. Monsieur Ellis, Poirot said, you served the poisoned wine. You found Sir Reginald's body, and you were near Lady Evelyn's cabin when her diamond vanished. Tell me, what ties you to these events? Ellis's voice cracked. I'm just a steward, sir. I heard things, that's all. Sir Reginald was asking about Mr. Crane's past, about some deal gone wrong. And Lady Evelyn, she was crying in her cabin the night the diamond was stolen. I didn't do anything. Poirot leaned back, his mind cataloguing the motives. Mrs. Duval's revenge, Crane's greed, Lady Evelyn's love or loss, and Ellis's fear of exposure. The clay smudge, the locked room, the torn note, all pointed to a truth just out of reach. Mon ami, Poirot said to Hastings, the shadows of motive are clear, but the killer's face remains hidden. We must watch closely, for the next move will be bold and dangerous. As the ship's bell rang, signalling dinner, Poirot knew the SS Aurora was nearing a breaking point, and only his little grey cells could pierce the darkness before another crime struck. Chapter 10. The Storm at Sea. The SS Aurora shuddered under the wrath of a Mediterranean storm, its decks path of a Mediterranean storm, its decks slick with rain, and its corridors echoing with the creak of straining timbers. Dark clouds churned overhead, and the wind howled, driving passengers indoors as the ship rocked on turbulent waves. Hercule Poirot stood in the ship's library, his notebook open, the sapphire brooch and the completed note. "Meet me at midnight. We must settle the debt you owe me," laid out before him. The clues were aligning, but a critical piece was missing. Captain Hastings burst in, his coat dripping. "Poirot, it's a beast out there. The captain says we're stuck until the storm passes, no port for at least a day. And the passengers, they're like caged animals." "Précisément, mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes fixed on the brooch. "The storm, it traps not only the body but the mind. Fear will make our killer reckless, and that is to our advantage." He had narrowed his suspects to 4. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, whose stolen diamond and past with Sir Reginald hinted at hidden motives; Victor Crane, whose financial dealings and cryptic promises suggested greed; Mrs. Clara Duval, whose journalistic past and scar pointed to revenge; and Philippe Lefebvre, the artist with a debt to the victim. But the clay smudge in Sir Reginald's cabin and the locked room remained a puzzle. Poirot decided to revisit the evidence locker, a small safe in the captain's office, where the brass paperweight, the murder weapon, and the poisoned wine glass were stored. Accompanied by Hastings and the captain, he opened the safe, only to freeze. "Mon Dieu!" he exclaimed. "The paperweight, it is gone!" The captain's face reddened. "Impossible! Only I have the key, and it's been on my person at all times." "Vraiment?" Poirot said, his voice sharp. "Then we have a thief as clever as our killer. This is no coincidence, monsieur. The paperweight, it holds a secret, perhaps a fingerprint, perhaps more." As they returned to the library, the ship lurched, sending books sliding from shelves. A steward rushed in, his face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, it's Mr. Lefebvre. He's locked himself in his cabin, says he's afraid for his life." Poirot and Hastings hurried to Lefebvre's cabin, where the artist stood trembling, clutching a sketchbook. "They're after me," Lefebvre whispered. "I saw someone outside my porthole last night, watching me." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Monsieur, describe this figure." "It was dark," Lefebvre said, his voice shaking. "A shadow, in a coat. I couldn't see their face." Poirot examined the porthole, noting a faint scratch similar to the one in Sir Reginald's cabin. "Curieux," he murmured. "The storm, it hides their movements, but not their intent." Returning to the library, Poirot summoned Mrs. Duval, whose calm demeanor seemed unshaken by the storm. "Madam," he said, "you spoke of seeing a figure in a dark coat near the lifeboats. And now Monsieur Lefebvre sees one at his porthole. Is there more you can tell me?" Mrs. Duval's gaze was steady. "Only that the figure I saw was slight, not tall like Mr. Crane, and they moved quickly, as if they knew the ship's layout." Poirot nodded, then turned to Hastings. "Mon ami, the paperweight's theft is a desperate act. Our killer fears exposure. We must watch Lady Evelyn and Mr. Crane closely tonight, for the storm will not shield them forever." As the ship groaned under another wave, Poirot felt the weight of the mystery pressing down. The missing paperweight, the clay smudge, the shadowy figure, all were pieces of a puzzle nearing completion. But the storm, both outside and within the SS Aurora, threatened to tear everything apart before he could uncover the truth. Chapter 11. The Final Confrontation. The storm had abated, leaving the SS Aurora bathed in the eerie calm of a starless night. The ship's grand lounge, with its velvet drapes and polished wood, was filled with a tense hush as Hercule Poirot stood at its centre, his small frame commanding the attention of every passenger gathered before him. The suspects, Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, Victor Crane, Mrs. Clara Duval, Philippe Lefebvre, and the steward Ellis, sat in a semicircle, their faces a mixture of fear, defiance, and curiosity. Captain Hastings stood by the door, his eyes fixed on Poirot, who adjusted his bow tie with deliberate precision. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "tonight, Hercule Poirot will reveal the truth behind the crimes aboard this ship, the theft of the Ashbourne diamond, the poisoning of Lady Evelyn, and the murder of Sir Reginald Holt. The killer is among us, and their mask will fall." A murmur rippled through the room, but Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Let us begin with the facts. Sir Reginald was struck with a brass paperweight, his death swift but deliberate. A note, 'Meet me at midnight. We must settle the debt you owe me,' was found torn in two. A sapphire brooch, tied to his past, appeared in Monsieur Lefebvre's cabin, and a smudge of clay courier was found where it should not be." He paced slowly, his eyes sweeping the faces. "First, the motives. Lady Evelyn, your diamond was stolen, but it was also the heart of a scandal 5 years ago, where Sir Reginald's advice enriched you at your brother's expense. Did he threaten to expose a truth that would ruin you?" Lady Evelyn's lips trembled. "I told you, he was a friend. I had no reason to kill him." Poirot nodded, turning to Victor Crane. "Monsieur Crane, your financial schemes in London entangled Sir Reginald. The note suggests a debt, perhaps one you refused to pay, and your cigarette case, found near his cabin, places you close to the crime." Crane's jaw tightened. "I was in the smoking lounge, Poirot. You've no proof." "Patience," Poirot said, his gaze shifting to Mrs. Duval. "Madame Duval, as Clara Moreau, you destroyed Sir Reginald's career with your exposé. Your scar tells of the price you paid. Did you seek revenge?" Mrs. Duval's eyes were steady. "I sought peace, Monsieur Poirot, not blood." Poirot turned to Philippe Lefebvre. "Monsieur Lefebvre, Sir Reginald funded your art, then demanded repayment when his own fortunes fell. The brooch in your locked drawer, did you steal it to settle that debt?" Lefebvre shook his head frantically. "I found it, I swear." Finally, Poirot's gaze fell on Ellis. "And you, Monsieur Ellis, a steward who sees all, hears all. You served the poisoned wine, found the body, and were near Lady Evelyn's cabin when her diamond vanished. Too many coincidences, no?" Ellis shrank back, his voice a whisper. "I'm no killer, sir." Poirot smiled faintly. "No, you are not. But the killer, they are clever. The locked room, the clay smudge, the stolen paperweight, these were designed to mislead. The clay came from a flower pot in the lounge, disturbed during a struggle. The paperweight was taken to hide a fingerprint, and the poison, a distraction to sow chaos." He paused, his voice rising. "The killer is Monsieur Victor Crane. You met Sir Reginald at midnight, as the note demanded, to settle a debt from your fraudulent schemes. When he threatened to expose you, you struck him with the paperweight. You stole the diamond to finance your escape, planting the brooch in Lefebvre's cabin to shift suspicion, and the poison, you administered it to Lady Evelyn to make her appear a victim, not a conspirator." Crane leapt to his feet, his face red. "This is outrageous. You've no evidence." Poirot held up a hand. "The clay on your shoe, monsieur, matches the lounge's flower pot, and the paperweight, stolen from the safe, was found this evening, hidden in your cabin, wrapped in your handkerchief." The room gasped as the captain stepped forward, holding the blood-stained paperweight. Crane's bravado crumbled, his shoulders slumping. I had no choice. He'd have ruined me." As stewards restrained Crane, Poirot's eyes gleamed, but a flicker of unease crossed his face. Mes amis, the case is solved, or so it seems, but Hercule Poirot senses one final thread yet to be pulled. The passengers dispersed, shaken but relieved. Hastings clapped Poirot's shoulder. "Brilliant, Poirot! You've done it again." But Poirot's expression remained grave. "Non, mon ami, the puzzle is not complete. There is a twist, a truth deeper still, waiting to be revealed." Chapter 12. The Twist of Truth. The SS Aurora sailed into the calm waters of its final port, the Mediterranean sun casting a golden glow over the deck as passengers prepared to disembark. But in the ship's library, Hercule Poirot stood before a smaller, more intimate gathering. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, Mrs. Clara Duval, Philippe Lefebvre, Captain Hastings, and the captain himself. Victor Crane, now in custody, was absent, but Poirot's expression was far from triumphant. His little grey cells, he declared, had uncovered one final truth, a twist that would redefine the scandal. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice steady and commanding, "last night I named Monsieur Victor Crane as the murderer of Sir Reginald Holt, the thief of the Ashbourne diamond, and the poisoner of Lady Evelyn. The evidence, the clay smudge, the paperweight, the note, it pointed to him. But Hercule Poirot does not rest until every thread is tied, and one thread remained loose." He paced slowly, his eyes locking onto each face. The sapphire brooch in Monsieur Lefebvre's cabin, it was too convenient, no? A clue planted to mislead. And the poison in Lady Evelyn's wine, not fatal, but precise, meant to distract. These were not the acts of a desperate man like Crane, but of a mind far more cunning. Lady Evelyn gasped, her hand at her throat. "What are you saying, Monsieur Poirot? Crane confessed." "Oui, madame," Poirot said, his gaze piercing, "but a confession under pressure may hide a deeper truth. Let us revisit the facts. The clay smudge in Sir Reginald's cabin came from a flower pot in the lounge, disturbed during a struggle. But Crane's shoes, they were clean when I examined them later. Someone else carried that clay. And the locked room, how did the killer enter and leave without breaking the lock?" He turned to Mrs. Duval, whose calm demeanor faltered for the first time. "Madame Duval, you observed much. Sir Reginald's argument, Crane's haste, the figure in the dark coat. But you omitted one detail. You were that figure, no? Your slight frame, your knowledge of the ship's layout, your past as Clara Moreau, who knew Sir Reginald's secrets." Mrs. Duval's lips parted, but no words came. Poirot continued, relentless. "5 years ago, your exposé ruined Sir Reginald, but it also cost you dearly. An attack, a scar, a life in hiding. You boarded this ship not for peace, but for justice. You argued with Sir Reginald near the lifeboats, demanding he acknowledge his role in your suffering. When he refused, you followed him to his cabin, struck him with the paperweight, and staged the scene to point to Crane. The room was silent, the air thick with shock. Hastings stammered, "But Poirot, the diamond, the poisoning." Poirot raised a hand. "The Ashbourne diamond, it was never stolen, mesdames et messieurs. Lady Evelyn, you hid it yourself, in collusion with Mrs. Duval. You, too, had a grudge against Sir Reginald, for his advice in your inheritance scandal enriched you but destroyed your brother, who later died in poverty. Together, you and Mrs. Duval planned this, a murder to punish Sir Reginald, a staged theft to deflect suspicion, and a poisoning to make you, Lady Evelyn, appear a victim." Lady Evelyn's face crumpled. "He ruined us both," she whispered. "My brother, Clara's life. We had to act." Poirot's eyes softened, but his voice remained firm. "You planted the brooch in Lefebvre's cabin. knowing his debt to Sir Reginald would make him a suspect. The poison, administered by Mrs. Duval through her access to the ship's supplies, was a calculated risk, and Crane, his own guilt made him an easy scapegoat. He confessed to protect his secrets, not because he killed. Mrs. Duval stood, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. We had no choice, Monsieur Poirot. He destroyed us, and he laughed at our pain. Poirot sighed. Alas, justice is not vengeance. The diamond, it is in your cabin, Lady Evelyn, hidden in the lining of your jewellery case. The clay, it came from a pot you brushed against in the lounge, Madame Duval. And the note, it was not to Crane, but to you, Lady Evelyn, from Sir Reginald, demanding silence about your past affair. The captain stepped forward, his face grim. They'll be arrested at court. You've done it, Poirot. As the women were escorted away, Hastings shook his head. A conspiracy, Poirot. You let Crane take the blame at first. Why? Poirot's moustache twitched. To draw them out, mon ami. Their guilt, it could not hide from the little grey cells. The truth, it is always symmetrical. As the SS Aurora docked, Poirot gazed at the horizon. The weight of justice balanced against the tragedy of vengeance. The scandal was over, and the ship, like his mind, was at peace.